So he's at least my height, you know, and listen, buddy.
Well, good morning.
Dr. Iqbal, is that you?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thanks. We can hear you fine.
Now, the world is safe now.
Safer.
Safer.
Talking about the a theoretical application for various things for that related to that in small business. And remember there was an old fake that how much did you make? Send it in.
Yeah.
So that's about how simple I think we should make these forms.
Really? Yeah, it's hard to imagine people.
Weber's here.
Morning. Hey, I saw our friend Kristen.
Where?
That's this morning at the gym.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen her lately?
All the time.
Oh, wow. She's lost a lot of weight.
Yeah. That's like Nicole's like best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I see her all the time.
That's 40 pounds. She's pretty happy.
That's not bad, right?
Yeah, good for her.
Definitely.
She asked her.
I saw Ryan this weekend.
Oh, yeah?
So this weekend in baseball.
He's lost a lot of weight, too.
Yeah, he did.
Tell him his your shoulders are smaller.
I was thinking about that this weekend. I should have told him.
You better wear a bulkier sweatshirts.
Hey.
That'll get him crazy.
He's lost his pump a little bit, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, you better not come in the gym, Ryan, because the other guys are bigger than you.
Good.
Quit chewing, though, he said.
Well, that's good. That's a positive.
Oh, God. Something like throat cancer.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know people that had everything reconstructed, you know? It's the rubber stamp today. Full ink.
Matt, how about those White Sox looking good, huh?
First place on
A rubber stamp.
July 21st.
Beating the Cubs twice too. How about that?
Walk off the mound in the middle of the inning.
I love it.
God, you got enough beads on it. They all love beads.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the King County Transportation Committee for Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. Could I have a motion, a second, to approve our minutes from June 16th, 2020, moved by Mr. Caius? Okay, well, I'm sorry, we're going to do roll call for attendance.
Hanson,
Here.
Iqbal,
Present.
Kenyon,
Here.
Caius,
present.
Martin,
Here.
Sanchez,
Here.
and Weber.
Here.
Motion to approve the minutes was made by Mr. Caius, second by Mr. Weber. All in favor, say aye.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
comment on the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay.
As presented, in section 8G, which was a motion to do something with the Long Meadow Parkway, it has me as the mover of that. I believe Mr. Martin moved that. 8G.
Oh, you are correct.
Okay.
And it also has that I voted for it, as well as Mr. Sanchez, and I believe that
Right,
we
you're
both
right.
did not vote for that.
Okay, duly noted and corrected. Any other adjustments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Uh,
Same
Aye.
sign.
Well,
Oh, we have to do a
Roll
roll
call.
call. I'm sorry, not used to this.
Hanson,
Aye.
McBall,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
and Weber.
Yes.
Okay, as far as public comment, is there anybody from the public that would want to speak? Mr. Fay from Lafarge is here. We'll hold him. I think we're first on the agenda with his issue. But any other public comment for today? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 4. This is the Lafarge Elburn request for temporary extension of hours of operation for their one machine. This is a relatively simple issue, but it's got a lot of background, so you'll have to indulge me on kind of letting me fill everybody in on what's been done over the last year. And as far as why it's at this committee, the county code allows that operations of gravel pits and quarries can be altered, their mining license can be altered or adjusted with the consent and approval of either the county engineer, the sheriff, or the development director, with the input from the local board member, which in this case is myself. If you remember on the development side, last year, we went through a pretty lengthy discussion. Lafarge asked to expand their gravel pit out in Elburn, which is on Route 47, south of Elburn, north of Main Street Road. And the pit has been there since 1969. It's approximately 600 acres in size. And they're currently authorized to mine gravel from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And they're allowed to do maintenance on equipment 24/7. The issue last year was to expand into kind of the last quadrant of land that they purchased to the northeast. It was quite an issue out there. If you recall, I had several meetings outside the usual county process, and at one, I think we had 54 people. But we worked through it, and we formed a neighborhood committee of 5 that represented the neighbors, and essentially got an agreement with Lafarge and the neighbors to take care of such issues as dust and noise and so forth in exchange for agreeing to the expansion, and which was passed by the county board. So last spring, with the virus coming online, well, I guess just before the virus came, Lafarge was ready to start the stripping of the overburden. That's the dirt that's over the gravel. It's a pretty big operation where they bring in about 15 machines from a subcontractor and move all that dirt and build berms and so forth. They were about to start that when the virus hit, so that expansion was put on hold. And so right now, things went through a little bit of turbulence, and as they've shaken out now later here in this construction season, Lafarge is asking us today, actually they're asking Carl as county engineer to approve expanded hours. And so the background on that is they talked to me very early in the year about 24/7 operation, and I told them I would not support that. There's a couple other proposals that I didn't support. But as time went by, I did tell them if they wanted to talk to the one neighbor who is very dramatically influenced by this more than all the others. If they worked out something with him, I would be open to allowing just some additional hours during the weekdays. So subsequently, Lafarge met with the one neighbor, and they did work out a deal, and he asked that they be allowed to, or he agreed that they would be allowed to operate one machine, which is a drag line, which we have a picture of it somewhere. Drag line is like a big crane with a bucket. There it is there. And that one machine, it has one operator. It's electrically powered, so there's virtually no noise. The power comes from the ComEd grid, which you can see on the right there. And the machine mines below water level, so there's no dust. So those are the concerns of the neighbors. There are always dust and noise. So this would be to allow this one machine to work from the current 6 p.m. close time to 9 p.m., which was requested by the one neighbor. Lafarge wanted 10 p.m., but he said he'd be open to allowing them to work 6 to 9. The drag line is down below grade. You can see the big embankment way in the back there. It's about 60 feet or so. And there's also a 30-foot berm above that. So the machine's about 90 feet below the elevation of any of the neighbors. So, that's what they're asking. And let me just look through can we have the map, the overall map of the gravel pit? And maybe I'll use my laser pointer to kind of orient everybody on where all this stuff is at. Okay.
Whoops.
Oop, there we go.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry about this.
Okay, so not the greatest picture with the sunlight here, but essentially this is Route 47. North, of course, is to the top. So if you're coming from Elburn, you'd come down this way. The expansion, currently the gravel pit is already mined into this whole area, and berms have been built around the entire perimeter up to about this point, and then along this side up to about this point. The permit that was issued last year was for this quadrant to be mined out, and the berms then would be connected across here. There's quite a drop in elevation from this area over to where most of those 54 neighbors lived. But there was one neighbor right here, the Flynn family, that was, they're actually the only ones on that side of the road. This farm will be demoed. And so this was the one I was concerned about the most, because he's the only one that can really see and hear the drag line working. And he was pretty vocal, but ultimately agreed to the process last year. So just to orient you, this is the Flynn residence. The drag line tends to work right down in this area, and the traditional equipment mines down to the water level, and then the drag line builds these lakes below water level, picks the material up, puts it into a pile, and during the night that the water drains out of that gravel, and the next day it is carried over to the plant and processed and shipped out the front gate here. So that will give you a little bit of a background on where everything is out there. Just looking through my notes here to see if I've covered everything. So yeah, the reason it's here is because Carl wanted to bring it to a legislative board. Technically, he could have just approved it, but he asked me, and I agreed that we should bring it to the committee. And the reason it's here is because Carl reports to this committee. So with that, I'll invite Mr. Fay to make any kind of statement he would like to make, and then we can take questions from the committee.
Thank you, Chairman Frost, members of the committee. My name is John Fay with Lafarge, representing Lafarge Elburn today. Our Director of Operations, Matt Tripp, and our Region Head, Julia Kraskoff, are also in attendance, as this issue's very important to us. I think you summarized all the background very well. I believe the committee has a couple of letters. One I sent to Mark Van Kerkhoff, excuse me, and one I sent to Carl Shadle. And with the background, the COVID's impacted us dramatically. And basically, it's been a good story because it's been very contained among our employees. We managed to prevent, a significant outbreak among our employees, but the sanitation and safety standards, the enhanced standards and protocols we put into effect have greatly impacted our operations and basically productivity and slowed us down. A lot of them are listed in the letter. I won't go through them all, but just whenever any equipment, for example, is shared, it has to be sanitized before another employee can use it. we have extra meetings every day to emphasize hygiene and also extra training on a regular basis. The premise is deep cleaned on a weekly basis. Our shift schedule's been modified to minimize contact. And I can go on and on. I think the letters lays it out pretty well. I'm just an office guy, and it adds, when I go to the sites, at least a half hour to my day. The production people, I think, has an even bigger impact. And if you cascade that over the number of employees we have, how many folks we have at Elburn, Matt? 40. So if you cascade the impact over 40, you can see it adds up pretty quick. So as Chairman Fraz mentioned, we had the expansion last year, and that was ultimately approved. We worked with the neighbors, and we will continue to do that, going forward. I think their biggest concern was us moving closer. I don't think it was necessarily historical operation of the site, but us moving closer to them. And we're very cognizant of that. We've already constructed the berms up where we're going to be mining for the next couple of years and vegetated those. So we're ahead of the curve on that. But again, the impact here is significant, and the drag line is a big part of our production. It's electric, it's quiet. The impact on the neighbors would be minimal, but it would really help us to keep up with our production and keep feeding, the Kane County jobs, IDOT jobs, tollway work, and the private work that we're feeding in the Kane County area. I saw the draft order by Carl. The conditions in that are great. If the committee is on board with what and we've been working with the staff, if the committee's on board with this, we'd hopefully like to start this, as soon as possible, tomorrow if possible, and get these hours going and put into effect, as far as we can. Just historically also, Carl granted us approval in 2013 to run 24/7, and we had no complaints. So, and that was for the whole operation. This time we just want to operate the drag line. And I'm very confident, there shouldn't be any complaints. If there are, Chairman Frost knows we'll address those immediately. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to respond to those or help you.
The one thing I did neglect to mention, this is only until December 1st.
Correct.
So it's really just to make up for lost time with the virus shutdown, and then allow the season to supply the various commercial and private entities. I received, and I think Carol did too, many letters from governmental agencies and customers of Lafarge urging that we do this. So, and this is just a consensus. Again, that Carl could just issue the order, but he wanted to bring it to the committee for consensus. And in summary, it's one machine, 1 hour. One machine, 3 extra hours a day just on the weekdays, and electric, so very little noise, and working in the water, so 0 dust. So questions or comments? Mr. Caius?
Did I read that it was also going to operate on the weekend?
They are currently authorized right now, and even previous to last year, to work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. 7 days a week. They often work a short day on Saturdays, rarely work Sundays. They have worked a few Sundays recently because of the problem we're talking about. They are allowed to do maintenance 24/7, so they can work on the plant and the equipment to make sure it's up and running for the next day.
Yeah, I know that COVID certainly has affected all of us. There's a 5-member group with the neighbors across the road. Have they been contacted? They're aware of this as well?
Yeah,
I could see where it wouldn't maybe impact them at all, but
Yeah,
we want to make sure
like I
that they're
said,
involved in.
out of the 54 people that attended those meetings, only like 4 were from west of 47.
Yeah,
So I did contact the unofficial leader of that 5-person board, and he wasn't real interested in getting involved because they couldn't see it or hear it from over there. So we concentrated on the Mr. Flynn, who's the one neighbor who's basically will sit right on the edge of the
right.
property. But I also talked had a sit down at the house of the neighbor to the west. He was very agreeable to everything. And then I talked to one elderly gentleman that is across the street, but the way his house is situated, he does look that way, and you can see just the top of the boom moving around. And I talked to him, and he was agreeable, but he's the one that suggested that they bend a little bit on Sundays and not operate until 10 a.m. And he said if they would do that, he was agreeable. So I talked to the 3 people that are affected, but nobody's more affected than Flynn's, because everybody else is either farther away or behind a berm, where Flynn is not. And Flynn has a long-term agreement with Lafarge with that expansion. That was part of the settlement last year.
Yeah, my concern is that they won't, not that they'll be affected, but they're aware of it so that they aren't felt.
Yeah.
Because was this, did this gravel pit have, were they operating outside of limits? Is that what I remember from last year for a while?
Last year when that came up, for a long time, they had been running a second shift, unaware that the license called for a 6 p.m. close. So they stopped that immediately when that was discovered. It's just the license was older than pretty much anybody at the pit.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's
because
just
of
my
that.
concern. There might be some sensitivity in the neighborhood because.
Yeah,
they've
there's
done that, so
definitely sensitivity, and we've
we
set
wanna
up
make
a
sure they're aware of it.
hotline. For example, I had a dust complaint on Saturday, got a hold of John, and he talked to the neighbor late on Saturday. So it works pretty well. But yeah, we have to be very conscious of the whole situation, definitely.
It's pretty impressive, the list of people that really want some gravel from that pit, so.
Yeah.
We have a lot of public customers, a lot of public agencies.
So if this were to go forward today, I would send a email to those 54 people. Kind of, there's some other things I want to update them on too, but
Yeah.
explaining
Make
this
sure
whole
that we're
situation.
paying
Right.
attention to their concerns. Yeah.
Correct.
Do you need a motion for this?
I don't, it's just consensus.
Because this is a resolution. No, is that? No, it's something else.
It's in order.
Yeah, it's an
Okay.
order from
Okay.
Carl as county engineer.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So Mr.
Consensus
Martin,
is I'm in favor of as long as they're
favor,
Mhm.
3 in favor,
in agree.
everybody in favor. So I'll consider that a yes. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Nodding.
Thank you, Chairman Fries and members of the committee. I appreciate your cooperation. It's a tough year.
Yeah, and as we talked about, I really do want to get that, the 2 things we agreed on last year, which was the white noise backup alarms and the dark skies lighting completed, because people are making comments like, hey, they agreed to that, when's it going to get done? So,
Well, where that?
The white noise alarms were all changed out last, well, this is about a year and a half ago, last year.
A year ago.
okay,
So those are all on all of our equipment. We actually do them all, we order all of our new equipment with that option on all of our. Dark sky lighting.
okay,
Can we get them on mic? Just for,
yeah. You want to
get
come,
this,
maybe just repeat that at the microphone
you
so
do
it's
that
on the
for us?
record,
If he can state his name.
and then state your name and address.
Matt Tripp, 922 Edgewood Drive, Sugar Grove, or work reside at 1 South 194 Elburn at the gravel pit. In reference to the dark sky lighting, which is a commitment we made last year, we will have all of those installed at this site by 12/31/2020 this year. We are going to do it with a third-party contractor and have already done the full scope of work on that. In reference to the white noise Rhino backup alarms is what they're actually called. We changed all of our equipment to those. I think it was roughly 12 or 13 pieces of heavy mobile equipment on the property at Elburn Sand and Gravel Pit. And we've actually made it a standard to order the machines for the Chicago market with those Rhino white noise backup alarms as well going forward.
Okay,
that gets rid of the loud beeps, right?
pardon me?
That gets rid of the loud beeps, this,
Yeah, you've heard the traditional backup alarms. The newer ones are very much focused, the noise, and it's a different kind of noise. I can't really describe. Yeah.
The older ones pierce
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that concludes that. Appreciate it. Next, financial report. Erica's not here, so we'll just go to Tom.
I just have a couple things to mention. First is that you do have our division report, and it shows the various trends. And Kathy Hopkinson also put together and is starting to track the MFT, local option MFT and RTA sales tax. And she's going to do this on an ongoing basis for a while, just so that you can kind of see some of the various trends over a number of years. And at the end of it, you can see kind of what's happened with the COVID related aspects. She also shows on here too the MFT when it went from 19 cents to 38 cents, and of that increase, our department receives about 68% of that. And so it shows the increase in MFT, but then it also shows the impact because of the COVID. At this point in time, if I read Kathy's notes correctly, I think our revenues are down about $900,000. That's just an estimate for right now.
Okay, questions for Tom? Seeing none, we'll move on to our first resolution, item 5B, approving personnel hiring and replacement, King County Division of Transportation, Planning and Programming personnel. Need a motion a second. Mr. Sanchez moves, Mr. Kenyon seconds. Tom?
We recently had an employee give their resignation, a planning liaison for the region. This position is very important, not only to Kane County, but also to the various municipalities that utilize federal funds. This employee is involved with the programming of almost $15 million or so in various federal funds on an annual basis. And so it is an important position, as well as it does, this position does regional planning. And so we're requesting that the county board, that this goes through the process for approval.
Any questions or comments? This is a replacement, not a new hire. We'll do a roll call vote.
Hanson,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Ross.
Yes. Okay, maintenance report, Tom?
The report's there. There's a lot going on, but it's pretty standard summer activities, culvert replacements, and the mowing is just ended. We'll have another startup of it. Our second mowing, we do 2 mowings a year. We'll have another startup around August, and that's all I have to report on maintenance.
Okay, any questions for Tom? Seeing none, planning and programming report.
Planning and programming, there's the newsletter that is in front of you or in your packet. A lot of good information. Again, this newsletter is primarily geared towards municipalities, so there's not everything in here is applicable to this committee, but you're at least aware of the different activities that the Council of Mayors and CMAP are working on. And then we're continuing forward on a long-range transportation plan. We're looking at, hopefully sometime in August, doing a public review of the documents and getting comments back from the public as well as yourselves on that plan. So that draft, hopefully again in August, will be available for review. A couple other things. If you go to the RTA website, you have the ability to look at their transit dashboard and just kind of see what's happening in regards to transit at this point in time. The regional travel of all transit modes is down, and that's primarily because of the COVID, the public reaction, as well as the jobs aspect. And so if you want to know a little bit about that, feel free to go to that website. And that's all I have for now.
Okay, any questions on that? Mr. Hanson?
Just to add to that, absolutely support what you just said. My full-time gig is running trains for a living, and those trains have been empty. We have the busiest metro line in the metro network from Aurora into the city, and our ridership has been down anywhere from 97 to 99%. I think we've skyrocketed all the way back up to about 94% of ridership before the coronavirus kicked in. And some of our conductors and some of our folks that see the same riders every single day that stay in contact with them, they're safe in their jobs working from home. And they've more or less been told that they won't be expected to come back to their office environment until at least school begins, if it begins, or until childcare expands. So at least in that one component on the busiest metro line, we're running empty trains.
Yeah, and this is a concern. I participate now with all my meetings. I used to ride transit sometimes 3-4 times a week, and I think I've been on the CTA maybe once or twice now since the shutdown of activities. And so most of my meetings now are online. And so the transit is also suffering financially right now. I think as part of the funding requests and such, the region as a whole is working really hard to make sure that transit comes out of this somewhat whole, because it is really hurting right now. So
What's the matter? Are you running a reduced schedule?
Yeah, so really at the onset of this, many of us thought this would be over by now, okay? And on our line, we used to operate 106 trains a day, approximately 70,000 people. And while there was still kind of a skeleton schedule out there, it was approximately 45% of the old capacity. And we're talking about only a few thousand people a day using that current schedule now. And there was also the expectation that even if this wasn't over by now, that phase 3 and phase 4 would lead to an increase in ridership, and it's just not there. So the capacity for all the metro lines is there, and we're no different than the other ones in terms of the percentage reduction, but we've gone from 70,000 people a day down to 2,500 to 3,000 a day.
And I think just like here, as you learn to use the teleconferencing and get used to it, a lot of people may stick with it. So.
And Metro, the bigger entity, and I don't want to speak on behalf of them, but I believe they thought that they'd be in a sound financial spot until the end of the year, because unlike big freight railroads, unlike international shipping companies, the fuel they purchase, it gets delivered. These aren't long-term future contracts, and so their fiscal year is pretty much set up for the end of the year, even with a reduced ridership. Now they're saying we're going to be in big trouble in October. So they keep on tightening that.
Mr. Caius?
Yeah, just on the other side of that, which is my wife worked in the city. I think they've moved their schedule calendar out to at least the end of September before they even consider. And she's a regular rider, was a regular rider of the
impacts of this are going to be lingering longer than we all had hoped, I think. Anything else? Okay, then we'll move on to traffic operations and permitting.
I'm not going to highlight anything at this point in time, except for that I had mentioned to you that I was looking at trying to bring the Randall Road, Illinois 72 to Benny Road intergovernmental agreement with the Village of West Dundee forward. Because of a whole bunch of various reasons, that's not coming to you today. Instead, the next item on the agenda is how I'll be addressing the intergovernmental agreement. And so I just wanted to mention, since it's a correction in what I told you last month, there is no agreement, but there is going to be approval of access. So that's all I have.
Okay, if you have any questions on specific items on that report, talk to Tom. We'll move on to that resolution, approving an access point on the east side of Randall Road at Recreation Drive, north of Route 72. I need a motion and a second. Mr. Sanchez and Mr. Kenyon, seconds. Tom?
So essentially what we're looking at here is taking the primary access that we do have a conceptual preliminary site plan, and I'm going to spend just a few minutes just talking about that and approving the access that is related directly with that point. So sorry, I'm going to go down a slide here. There is the resolution. The resolution, in some respects, has borrowed from the typical language that you would see in the intergovernmental agreement. If you look through the various bullet points in there, what it's doing is approving the east side of Recreation Drive. Right now, it's a T intersection, and only the west side has access point. Since Randall Road is a freeway by state law, as well as on the national highway system, and anything we generally do on Randall Road, we bring before the committee. And so this is an access that the committee would start the process for the county board approval on the east side. The county engineer, bullet point number 1 there, will determine the final design and the permitting requirements. We design these intersections on our freeways so that the intersections do not have to be reconstructed in the future, because that adds millions of dollars. So when the developer comes in, they will be building the intersection proper just to be able to easily accommodate the 6 through lanes as is typical. This doesn't mean that they're building all the 6 through lanes. It just means the intersection is built so that the signals are set back and that the pavement at the curb returns accommodate for the future widening. Number 2 there, it says that there's no access on the throat of the drive that comes to Randall Road within 500 feet, and this is to make sure that operationally the drive works well. Number 3 is that the village will be a co-applicant to the permit. The municipalities generally pay all signal-related costs, energizing, as well as different maintenance aspects. And so the village of West Dundee will be looking at paying those typical costs that all other municipalities also pay.
Did you get that from, is this typical language from Shakespeare? Is that what the appurtenances sentences? Section 3 there?
Yeah, yes. It's standard language that's in our agreements, and I just moved it from our agreements. The state's attorney's office has reviewed all those agreements in the past. So.
Good enough. They had to go to Webster's dictionary, which cited Shakespeare as the one of the sources for that one.
Okay. And then number 4 is that the village will ensure that the east leg meets MUTCD. That's our Uniform Traffic Control Manual. Number 5, the village and developers, they will look at all the various requirements and meet the various requirements of our access regulations. This property, and I'm just going to show you a site plan real quickly. This property has some difficult topography. There's probably close to 40 feet of topography change from the high area that the development is proposed on into a wetland area. And then there's also a wetland area in the north end. So your typical frontage roads that we try to put in, very difficult on this property. We really tried to make sure that, that it was nearly impossible. To the south, there will be no access to 72 because of topography and wetland. And then to the north, they're not building a road to the north, but there will be an easement just in case there's an opportunity to build a frontage road up to future development on the north side. So that's a discussion that needs to take place. Number 6, we're looking at the original lot and the various requirements for the original property, going back again to this site plan. The original property is a large parcel, about 155 acres. And so it's a very large parcel. They're breaking it up into 3 pieces. They've got this parcel here will be a piece, the proposed development in here, and then this will be a piece. So that's the 3 lots that will be broken into. As part of the requirements for right-of-way dedication, all the right-of-way along Randall Road from this point south will be conveyed, and all the right-of-way along 72 will be conveyed. So again, meeting the typical conditions. The only thing that's not being conveyed at this point is this right of way along Randall Road here. That will be conveyed at a later point when the future development to the north occurs. Going back to the bullet points, the last bullet point, number 7, deals with what we discussed last month. And as I mentioned, there's this wetland area here. Last month, the property owner basically offered to convey to us the 15 acres that is shown in red. They would do this as consideration of the full access. We will not be paying anything for it. It will be directly consideration relative to the full access. So there is the 15 acres here. That 15 acres provides for the ability that in the future, if we need some additional wetland mitigation as part of a future project or some detention, there's 2 areas within that 15 acre that the county could potentially use for detention as well as wetland mitigation. And so staff is recommending that we proceed forward with the acceptance as consideration. This also takes care of the right-of-way requirements, because regardless of whether the county received this 15 acres here, the developer would, the property owner would need to still convey the right-of-way along Randall and the right-of-way along 72. Since this includes that right-of-way, it creates flexibility for the county if in future there is a further need for any reason. I think the committee is aware that we are proceeding forward with a feasibility study and phase 1 engineering for intersection improvements at Randall and 72. There's a lot of, during the peak hour, a lot of backups that occur because of the capacity need at that intersection. As much as we've seen anywhere from a typical half-mile or greater backups in traffic at that location during the peak hour.
Easily.
Yeah.
I'll attest to that.
Okay. So the red area, if you look at the resolution, the last aspect of the resolution has one more statement, and it's that the county board hereby accepts the conveyance of the approximate 15-acre remnant, which has adequate area to accommodate the stormwater detention required as part of the proposed full signalized intersection at Recreational Drive and potentially the future widening of Randall Road. So that accommodation now is taken care of, as well as the county board. When they pass this on August 11th, it will allow the staff to accept and do the process of moving forward with that 15 acres. So again, it's addressing everything that would typically be dealt with. The intergovernmental agreement is like a 20-page document, but this addresses the primary key points. Intergovernmental agreement is more of a planning document, so it takes a lot longer to get to the points. So,
Tom, on the that last item you talked about, so that is a wetland now, right?
a good chunk of that is a wetland.
You say it will accommodate the detention needs. That's without modification? I mean,
Yeah, there's some area in here, and area up in here that you could put detention in without impacting the wetlands.
Okay.
And there might be some over here too, but I didn't dwell on that. The engineers looked at the ability of these 2 areas for future detention.
Then as far as the layout of the entrance off Randall Road, as I look at it, I don't see any other entrance or exit to the property.
This is the only entrance and exit. Again, it's very difficult to get to 72, and you'd have to go through a wetland up here, as well as it would be a different land use potentially. Right now, the northern part of this, we refer to this as the Galvin property. It goes all the way from 72 up to Benny, which is about another half mile or so to the north. That property is being looked at as residential and commercial primarily. So land use wise, while I personally at the a planning staff level, I like to mix land uses and it combines trips quite often. This is primarily proposed for industrial slash warehousing. And so the use is significantly different than what's proposed to the north, but just in case we are creating an easement right here that there may be the potential of connecting through the wetland in the future, but it's not recommended right now by the village.
That would be my concern, because I mean, even just a relatively simple accident on Randall at that entrance shuts the whole place down.
Yeah.
Until it's over, or if you get a truck on fire on that entrance lane, the place is landlocked. So I guess that'd be my only comment. I don't know that we have a policy or the village does as far as that, but hopefully that property would develop relatively soon to the north there, or south, I guess would be.
No.
Mr. Kais, did you have your hand up?
That would be north, yeah, they
Yeah.
would have to go through that housing development to the north, just to your point. Right, if there was housing development north and they couldn't get out to Randall,
Right.
would the housing development to the north, they wouldn't put anything on Randall to go into that, would they, or would that come off of Benny?
I wish I had a larger aerial going
Yeah.
all the way up to
I'm
Benny.
familiar with
I apologize that I don't, but
the zoo is up there on the left.
zoo is up there on the left. It's all farmed currently north of here, north of this wetland here. You go a half mile up to Benny and it's all farming right now. But the conceptual land use plan is for commercial and residential for this whole area. So commercial along Randall Road is proposed, as well as residential back here. And so at this point in time, it is a significantly different type of land use. And so, yeah, the village at this point would prefer not to connect it, but at the same time, they, because of the same concerns that the chair brought up, we've asked them to put in an easement right here just in case it makes sense to make a connection.
The other option would be an emergency access to the south there. You know, like grass pavers or something.
I was thinking of that same thing. They could,
And that's something that we can continue to look at. Again, there is about a 40-foot topographic change. It's a pretty significant drop in
It's-
topography.
It's really wet too, isn't it? Is that?
Yeah, this is
any
all,
water?
everything where you see these hash marks, this boundary here is the wetland boundary.
Yeah.
So, and this is your typical buffer. It's like 100-foot buffer around the wetland. So this is very wet down here and it's very
Very.
wet to the north.
Very wet.
But I would say that I would think the committee concurs that we do have concerns about the one access point as far as this going forward. But other comments, Mr. Kais?
The upside of having the 15 acres turned over to the county is that we have the mitigation. Are there other downsides that we would expect? There's minor or major things that we'd be concerned about? Do we really want this? Is this something we have to maintain? It's going to cost us money in the long run? Or?
It's not something that's one of the things I checked into, and I shared a little bit about this last month, is that I did initially check into the concern as far as potential maintenance liabilities for the future. There is no maintenance requirements. So at this point in time, the thought is that we would utilize that property for whatever needs that there are in the next 10 to 15 years. But then ultimately, we would look at some entity, whether it be the Park District or the Conservation Foundation. We'd look at maybe somebody maintaining it in the future and enhancing the quality. If we have to utilize any of this property along here for mitigation, the Corps of Engineers might have some additional work that they want us to do. And so there is that aspect of it, but typically that's something that would be required for any of the mitigation that we do for the Randall Road 72 improvements. So at this point in time, we did check, and there is no requirement that we maintain this. You know, but at the same time, it's our desire in 10, 15 years to convey it to another party.
Yeah. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, that's it. We need let's see, we need a vote on that?
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
One other question, because they
Guys.
are, the part of the last section of the resolution is to therefore resolve that we accept the conveyance. Should that be in the title as well as just maybe bookkeeping stuff? I don't know.
I will be glad to add something in the title that highlights that more.
So
I
it
can-
would make sure that we can find it when I'm looking. So it's not just the last paragraph in there about us taking land
Yeah,
involved.
yeah, and I apologize. I was looking more that was part of the consideration of the full access, and so that was my focus. But I can
Sure.
add something in there.
I think it would be more informative and
We'll
certainly easier.
do a roll call vote with the assumption Tom's going to make that slight modification. Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll do roll call.
Hanson,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Henyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin,
Stepped out.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Gross.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, now we'll move over to item 9, project implementation, and we'll move over to Steve.
Not going to highlight too much on the IMP report. First time back into the new audio system here. How's that?
Yeah.
So I can move on to the photos unless someone has any questions.
Go ahead.
All right, the first one here shows Long Meadow Parkway, section B2. Landscaping, bridge deck, treatment, and paving. And this shows also the section of Long Meadow that was open on Friday afternoon from the east end of Algonquin, Whitechapel Lane, east to Illinois 31, connector road. So it's the jug handle that goes down and connects to Illinois 31. So that section is open to the public, no toll, and will continue to remain to be open. So next photo. Section C1 is the new bridge, and it shows the concrete paving on the left along with the trail through Bruner Forest Preserve that goes over Long Meadow Parkway. Landscaping continues, and then site cleanup on the east side of the bridge is shown at the bottom. On section C2, which is our last mainline segment, that's from Sandbloom Williams east to Illinois 25. They're starting to cut topsoil and do mass grading on that project along with utility relocations. Kirk Fabian, major intersection reconstruction projects. We're doing pavement milling, excavating, and subgrade prep. Flashing yellow arrow projects, stage 3, continue to work on traffic signal replacement and ADA pedestrian access improvements, along with the next photo, which is stage 2 HSIP, which also includes some of those elements too as part of our safety project. There's a staged construction with a single lane closure. At the top, you can see the signal that allows us to build Burlington Road culverts half at a time. Under a closed road condition, Silver Glen Road twin box culvert replacement is ongoing. The installation of our next roundabout at Burlington and Bolcom continues. That project is moving along rather quickly. Last but not least is our Peckett-Britcher intersection reconstruction project that crews have started excavation. That's all of the photos.
Yes, I was copied on a real positive email chain, I think on Saturday, from a lot of the local officials up north about the opening of Long Meadow between
Excellent.
Whitechapel and 31. They're all very excited about how long it's taken to get to that point, but we're finally there. Questions or comments on the photos and presentation?
My comments that I heard was there was drag racing going on Long Meadow already. It's a big, long, wide stretch, which since it's not going through, there's not a lot of traffic.
Did you win? Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Is that you,
Our
Jared?
county board meeting a few minutes after that.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to our first resolution under project implementation, approving phase one engineering services agreement with Crawford, Murphy and Tilly out of Aurora. This is for the Doberman Road, Meredith Road realignment project. Need a motion and a second. Mr. Kenyon and Mr. Martin move second and move in second. Steve?
Realignment and connection of Doberman and Meredith roads has been in the county's long-range plan for over or at least 25 years. Staff recently completed our consultant selection process, selected CMT and negotiated a phase one engineering contract for $657,000 and change. The map here shows a couple of the alignment alternatives that are under consideration, connecting either to the south or to the north. Canelan High School is in this northeast quadrant, and we will coordinate with them during our alternatives analysis. Nothing set in stone at this time. So, the alignment would go beyond around the school that we are considering. So, staff recommends approval of this, get this engineering study underway.
This, as you can see, this is right near the Canelan High School complex out there. And Tom has worked with me over many, many years. We get a lot of complaints about the speed limits there, minor accidents at the two T intersections. A lot of it related to the big rush in the morning to get to school or leaving, a lot of texting and driving going on. But we've dealt with it, but this would be a more long-term solution. And we have talked to the people over the years about this as the ultimate solution. So questions or comments? Seeing none, let's do a roll call vote.
Hanson? Yes. Iqbal? Kenyon?
Yes.
Caius?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Iqbal? Okay, passes. Gross?
Yes. Okay. Motion pass, or resolution passes. Our next resolution approving the Easy Pass Operations Interagency Agreement with Easy Pass Interagency Group of Newark, Delaware. This is for Long Meadow Parkway. Need a motion and a second. Mr. Kenyon moves. Mr. Martin seconds. Steve?
Staff have been coordinating with our consultant, Stan Tech, and the tollway staff about how to best implement the toll bridge on Long Meadow Parkway. During our last meeting with the staff, Tollway agreed that becoming a full member of the Easy Pass group and having us hire our own firm to run the back office system is the most cost-effective approach to implementing the toll bridge. In April, the Executive Management Committee of Easy Pass Group unanimously approved our request to become a full member. There are annual dues of $25,000 starting this year when we sign up, and starting in 2022 when we open the toll bridge, we'll need to reconcile with other Easy Pass agencies whose customers use our toll bridge by paying a proportional share of credit card fees that are applied when their accounts are replenished. And it's a proportional share. We'll be reconciling primarily with the tollway, I'm sorry, because those are the users that are going to be using our bridge primarily. Staff recommends approval of the appropriation request for the first year's annual dues of $25,000 for this year, and a conservative estimate of the annual credit card fees of $55,000 to start in 2022. So this is an appropriation request for $80,000. Going forward, staff foresees that the county engineers authorize payment of the annual fee since it falls under $30,000, that he would authorize that payment until the time if the annual dues exceed his authorization. So it's an request of 80,000 plus allowing us to execute the interagency agreement with Easy Pass Group.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? Mr. Weber?
Question. The $25,000 annual fee, is that going to get prorated because this year is obviously shorter, or is that the annual fee every year?
I'm not aware of a proration. I will ask that question.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Kenyon?
Doesn't sound like a very good deal. We're paying for it before we use it.
I think we have to become a member before we're allowed to go through the process.
The timing is important because we're right now going through a RFP process for a back office system. And becoming a member assures the county that we're taking the right approach on the RFP services, that we would then operate our own back office. So we want to make sure we get the agreement approved, become a member, so that we are moving forward in the right direction.
Vatican involved in this?
Easy.
Definitely not.
Work on your terminology, the back office.
For the record, definitely not. Mr. Caius?
My turn? On behalf of my constituents in District 23 who have opposed the scope of this project and who vehemently oppose the toll on the only minor roadway in the state of Illinois that is involved in the state of Illinois.
I'm not sure. I think it's the second.
Nope, you're wrong.
Isn't there a bridge in Will County? Or in
There was a bridge in Winnebago in Rockford, and but they finally paid off all their tolls and their bonds a few years ago. But there was
The
one
Bower
in-
Bridge.
Okay, anyway,
Bower
sorry. to
Bridge.
interrupt
There
you.
was, so it is. And also, I
And-
think it demonstrates, excuse me.
Oh,
did you
I
have a-
apologize. And there is one that will be going forward in Will County. You are correct. I forgot about that.
That they're a little bit ahead of us, so go ahead.
So
Sorry.
as we speak, it is the only one.
Duly
As far as I
noted.
know. I think this Easy Pass, all 180 pages of it or whatever the agreement is, demonstrates that it's going to cost us money. And the people that are passing this are not so much concerned that that taxes increase, but it's just that they don't have to pay them, whereas the residents of northern Keene County have to pay to get across our town in Algonquin and Carpentersville. And I think and I am going to vote no on this, and I would encourage those members of the board to do so as well.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Hanson. Kenyon.
Yes.
Iqbal. Caius.
Bias, no.
Martin.
Yes.
Sanchez.
No.
Weber.
Yes.
And Braz.
Yes.
Okay, passes.
Motion passes, 2 no votes. Okay, next resolution approving reimbursement agreement with the Union Pacific Railroad Company for the Bunker Road Extension Engineering Review. Need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Caius, second by Mr. Sanchez. Steve?
Land acquisition is nearly complete for the Bunker Road Extension Project to Kesslinger Road, which goes under the existing UP Railroad Bridge as highlighted by Mr. Rickert. So this extension has been in our plans, was coordinated with Metra and UP Railroad as part of the extension of the railroad, and they constructed that bridge. And so we're looking to do the roadway extension. And now that we are starting to get closer to construction, now is the right appropriate time to have UP Railroad review our contract plans where they reside right now. There's a fee associated with that. It's estimated at $50,000. Staff recommends a 20% contingency, so we're requesting a $60,000 appropriation request to have the railroad review our plans.
So this was originally part of the LaFox development discussion years ago. That project didn't move forward, but the road is needed. That's right by the LaFox train station. And there's additional parking proposed on the north side of the tracks, which this will serve. And I believe there'll be some reimbursement process if the development ever goes forward. So questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Hanson. Iqbal. Kenyon.
Yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Braz.
Yes.
Okay, passes.
Okay, motion passes. I need a motion and a second to put all our reports on file from today's meeting. Moved by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Hanson. All in favor, roll call, I guess.
Hanson. Kenyon. Caius.
Caius, yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Braz.
Yes. We have no need for executive session. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Anybody want to address the committee before we adjourn? Being none, I'll take a motion and a second to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by Mr. Weber. Roll call to adjourn. Oh, we can do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
For those of you that are joining us for the Development Committee, we're going to be getting started in just a couple minutes. We're going to switch out the chair and some board members, but we'll get started in probably just a few minutes, so you can just stay on this call. Thank you.
I'm looking for some alpacas.
There's some on,
I'm not looking for them. I'm not. There's no money in alpacas. It's just the amount of money I've lost on alpacas.
that's a hobby sport.
No, I'm not into that. Hobby sport.
I think they're kind of nasty.
Are they? Most animals are typically not really friendly, right?
Should invest in a little recording of that, of your objection. Just- And then just
I
sit
could go
back.
back to the minutes. I can record it off
Yeah.
the audio from the past ones. Oh, no, I like to throw a little extra, like this was a little bit about that.
Customize them.
Yeah, this is more about the,
Might have to make a
So Roger, am I shutting down Zoom? Got it. We just wanted you to wake up. Right? I think I better reserve my comment. Actually, there were photos being taken the other day I saw. I said there were photos being taken the other day.
Okay.
There were photos being taken the other day of such activity.
Yeah, we're just. I just gave to John this deleted sentence.
Okay.
Otherwise, everything else is good.
Speakers? Yeah, I've got them in order. Simple. It's their own. Pago is its own. Yeah.
It's nice and warm in here today.
I've got them in order across the top, so I'm ready to go. Okay. Yeah.
Want to make sure because there's 4 PowerPoint.
Yep. Got them. Crumple, ETO. Yeah, I got them all.
Oh, yeah, I think 6 feet, right?
You're okay.
And you're facing and talking forward, so. I'm keeping it on for warmth.
Who wants to drive? You do?
How's it going?
Good, good. So you drive racing, huh?
No, it's a part-time thing. Just, it's for fun mostly. It's the thrill of it, man.
Yeah, you have to let me know when the next one is.
Yeah.
Got to warm up.
When the bridge goes all the way across, you can get it on the camera on the east side. You can see it. You guys can put it on YouTube or something.
When are you starting, John?
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I still haven't gone out. I need to go.
Half an hour?
People have been taking photographs and stuff just to the view.
Yeah.
I haven't been up there yet.
Yeah, I was a couple of weeks ago, I was walking around up there just to kind of see what it looked like.
Yeah.
What am I doing? Oh.
Good morning, everyone. It is 10:07, and I am calling to order the July 21st meeting of the County Development Committee. I ask first, please, that the clerk call the roll.
Barrero. Braz. Hanson. Kenyon. Leonard. Burgess. Weber.
Here.
Winnicke.
Here.
Okay, you have a quorum.
We have a quorum. We've been given copies of the draft minutes. May I have a motion for approval, please? Mr. Fries moves. Ms. Winnicke seconds. Do we have comments or suggestions? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Barrero. Braz.
Yes.
Hanson. Kenyon.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Burgess. Weber.
Yes.
Winnicke.
Yes.
And Martin.
Yes. For monthly financials, I believe we do not have anyone from the finance office, so that report has been available to us. I'd ask, please, that it be reviewed if it hasn't been. For public comment, do we have anyone present today who is wanting to comment on a matter other than one of the pending petitions? Do we have anyone online who would like to comment? Hearing none, then we will hear comments related to petitions as those matters appear before us. Mr. Van Kerkhoff.
Good morning. Good to see everybody this morning in person again. For the building and zoning report. Sorry, this is so hot. I'll back up. It's been a very busy spring for our permitting team. We've continued to work remotely and receive applications via email and payments online. And because of that, we've been able to service the construction industry and homeowners who are doing improvements to their homes. We've had an exceptionally large amount of pool permits with many of the public pools being closed. We're very grateful for the support that our IT team has given everybody to make that possible. We also continue to handle all the nuisance complaints that sometimes are handled by the health department due to the extra workload they have due to the health emergency. Of course, with the rain and people being outside again, we get a lot more complaints on weeds and those kind of things as well. One significant building project update, the former Glenwoods school site, which was purchased by Recovery Centers of America. They had applied for permits in the beginning of the year for rehabilitating the campus with multiple permits for those buildings. They have completed basically the physical improvements that they need to make to the campus. They've begun their hiring process for staffing up to open. They're planning on receiving patients on September 1st. The main things we're continuing to work on with the state's attorney's office is reviewing the conditions of the settlement agreement and the zoning to make sure that they have all those conditions satisfied prior to issuing an occupancy for use for the entire campus. And then the last item I have this morning, for those of you who are at Transportation Committee, under the zoning ordinance falls the requirements of the mining licenses, and the Lafarge operation on Route 47 in Kane County is under that mining license, under a provision of that that allows under an emergency condition for the county engineer, being Carl Shadle, to issue an emergency order for extended hours. I believe you took that to Transportation Committee. I wanted to report that since that is a function that falls under Development Department and the licensing, but we felt it was appropriate for Carl to review that request. I don't know, Drew, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, that was our first item under transportation, and we had a lengthy discussion and presentation. There was a lot of overlap between the two committees. I'm not sure if Mr. Leonard was here for any of it, but the consensus from the committee was to approve and to instruct Carl to move forward.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have, unless there's any questions at this time.
Any questions of Mr. Van Kerkhoff? Hearing none, could we please move to petitions?
Sure. The first petition this morning is one coming back to you after an extended period of time, petition 4472, St. Charles Township for Mary Ann Krempel. Location is on Bittersweet Road. It's proposed rezoning from F District Farming to R1 Rural Residential. This is back after an extended period of time for the petitioner and the adjacent property owner to work through easement issues. I understand the petitioners here, petitioner's representative, attorneys for both her and the neighbor. I believe there's one objector who's registered to speak. But before we get into all that, we'll go through the slides again just to remind you of where this proposed petition is at and answer any questions you might have. This is located on the 2040 plan for residential uses. It's surrounded by the forest preserve. The subject parcel is at the very end of this street here, Bittersweet. Here it is on the zoning map. You can see it's an older subdivision, so predominantly F District Farm zone lots, which were permitted at the time. There's some E3 zoning and the city of St. Charles adjacent to it. Here it is in an aerial. Again, you can see the forest preserve and the residential pattern on Bittersweet. Here's the subject parcel. It has an existing home on it and driveway located here. Well, you'll hear more about the easement, but the easement issue had to do with an easement that originally was at this location, or is at that location. This was the original proposed site plan when you first heard it much time ago. This was updated through the process by proposing the house to be further back and proposing use of that existing easement.
All right, love you. Bye-bye.
This is some historic aerial photos that just show the house originally had access on that easement, and another one. And then in the 90s, this driveway was constructed, and that was part of the issue with the right of use of the easement. Staff recommended finding the fact the rezoning would result in one additional residential parcel. did not go to Regional Planning Commission. Zoning Board of Appeals had recommended approval. It's been back and forth between different sessions of Development Committee due to the access easement. And if that'll answer any questions. Otherwise, the update would be to hear from the petitioner on what they resolved with the easement and hear from the objector if you wish. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I clarify procedurally, is this matter now on the table or?
It had been tabled, so it's
Okay, so then
reintroduced.
before we continue with testimony, I would ask that someone please move to have this taken off the table. Mr. Leonard moves, Mr. Weber seconds. Vote, please.
Froz,
Yes.
Hanson, Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Winnicke,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Guerrero, yes.
okay.
Thank you. Motion carries. The matter is off the table. I'm going to request, I think so that we have all of the presentation clear at the outset, if Mr. Thornhill would address the issue of the easement so that we have all the facts before us before we hear other testimony.
Good morning. Yes, this matter was tabled about 8 or 9 months ago, and I think this committee chose not to adjudicate the legitimacy of the easement, which we had alleged for quite some time. I would like to defer to the attorneys who have handled this particular matter to give an update on the progress of that issue, as well as the change of events with neighbors in the area and objectors. So, Joe Selbka, could you add your comments?
You're recognized. Would you please give your name and address?
Good morning, Your Honor. Joseph Selbka, SELBKA, 2300 Barrington Road, Suite 220, Hoffman Estates, Illinois is my office address.
Thanks.
And
I'm flattered, but you don't need to refer to me as Your Honor.
wow. We in the last time this was before this board, the issue of the easement came up. The owner of the Servient estate, Mr. Bowers, objected to the rezoning on the basis of the validity of the easement. We subsequently filed a lawsuit to quiet title regarding the easement back at the beginning of 2020, which is currently pending before the Chancery Court for the Circuit Court of Kane County. We have reached an agreement in principle wherein Mr. Bowers, the neighbor who owns the Servient estate, has agreed to the validity of the easement in exchange for input into the placement of the driveway and other matters which are going to be recorded in the settlement agreement and recorded order. The easement will be recognized as valid. Mr. Bowers is going to withdraw his objection to the rezoning request and agree to join the zoning request, or rather present his support for the zoning request. Mr. Bowers' attorney is here today. That is Mr. Griffith, and he will be able to confirm what I have just informed the board of.
I'd like to ask one question first. This site plan that we have in front of us dated March 1st, 2019, does that reflect the negotiated placement of the driveway? Is that current?
Yes, it does. There's an area where the petitioner would use the existing driveway and then cross over at a point north of a large tree right in that location. That is the location of the crossover that's contemplated.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at it. I see the, if you take the top driveway as it arcs down, is it going to take that sharper turn and go to the south?
Right there, what Mark is highlighting right there. that area right
Okay,
there.
all right,
That's
thank you. I just wanted to make sure we all knew.
Thank
I can't see the red dot on my screen here, so.
Good morning, Pat Griffin, represent Justin Bowers, and my address is 21 North 4th Street, Geneva. I don't really have anything else to add other than we're working on the finalizing the documents. We plan to present that to the judge for his signature and presentation to the full county board next month.
Thank you. That being concluded, we have a number of speakers signed up this morning. First that I recognize here is, let's see, Mr. Sebka already spoke. Ronald Seneschal.
Good morning. Ronald Seneschal, 3N949 Bittersweet Road, St. Charles, Illinois. And I'm the neighbor 2 houses away, directly, I guess directly, it would be east of the Krempel property. I'll be looking directly at it. I'm probably one of the most affected. I won't repeat. I've been in front of the committee. My testimony is of record. I just wanted to reiterate my support. We're probably one of the most affected. And then Mr. Bowers is next to us. He is not objecting. The 2 properties directly across the street have tendered letters of support, and then the 2 properties directly adjacent and south have also come in to testify and indicate their support. So the 6 immediately adjacent properties most affected are all in support. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Ann Krempel.
I'm the petitioner, and I really don't have anything else to add to what's already been presented. I think everybody's done a good job of stating what the situation is. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Fender.
Good morning, Jeff Fender, 3 North, 915 Bittersweet. I'm 4 houses east of the proposed property. Again, I strongly oppose this. I guess if you would imagine yourself being a neighbor and sharing a driveway, and all of a sudden your neighbor builds a new driveway and uses it for 20 years and puts a berm up in between the property line and comes back over 20 years later and says, hey, you know what, I want to slam a new house onto this property and I'm going to come back and use this easement. I would think most neighbors would be pretty upset and disappointed about that and frustrated for that. The intent of the new driveway was for her to always use that to get into her home. Now for her benefit, she wants to go in and slam another house onto that property and fight between her and her neighbor. I mean, if this was an easy easement situation, this would have been resolved 8 or 9 months ago. But even as of today, they still don't have an agreement. They still don't know where the driveway is going to be and how it's going to be. I think it's been nonsense from the beginning. I presented a petition from all 85, about 85% of the people on Bittersweet that are against this. When you look at the land use report, everything in the land use report indicated to run. There's drainage issues, there's septic issues, non-conforming issues. And yet, just because a couple of the neighbors who have been friends with her for 30 or 40 years and live close to her are for it, you know, it's a valid situation. It's not. Everyone else on Bittersweet's against it. Again, it's a crazy configuration. She's trying to slam another house into a crazy rezoned property or plat. You know, I look at this as complete nonsense from the beginning. It's still nonsense to me, and it's still nonsense to a lot of the other neighbors here. Again, I just ask for common sense here and think, if you were the neighbor, what would you think? If this was, like I said, a slam dunk with this easement, it would have been resolved by now. On top of all the other issues that are presented, I ask for you today to once and for all, put a stop to this and deny this petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers that want to address this petition? None being present, do I have any online? There are none online. I would open then the floor for discussion. Members of the committee. Mr. Kenyon.
Kenyon.
Kenyon,
It seems like this has taken a long time and they've been quite patient trying to work through it. And I'm going to be voting for it. I think it's not as harmful as some people would think. So I think it's in keeping with what we've done over there.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, the question I have is for the last individual who spoke who opposes it. I think he said he was 3 or 4 lots east of the proposed change. He said 85% of the neighbors oppose it. Are they on record as opposing it? And then number 2, how many homes are there on Bittersweet?
Yeah, so this is Jeff Fender again. We walked a petition on the entire street of Bittersweet, and all except the people that have presented in favor for it were opposed of it. I believe there's 30, I want to say 30 houses total on Bittersweet. And besides the 5 or 6 people that live closely around her property line, every single one of the other individuals on this street that we had signed the petition against it, if that answers your question.
Thank you.
Ms. Winicky?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to agree with my
I'm
coworker.
Farmer Kenyon.
Yeah, Farmer Kenyon. The way I see it is Ms. Krempel has lived there for many, many years and apparently loves where she lives and just wants to reduce the size of her maintenance and her housing. And I think she's been very patient. Her lot's located at the end of the road. It's surrounded by forest preserve. I think she's just looking to retire in something a little smaller, but you know, keep her the nature that she loves with the forest preserve behind her. And I think I can't see it being a detriment to the neighborhood at all. And I agree with Farmer Kenyon. I will vote yes on this.
Mr. Fries?
I will say the petitioner and her team has done a good job in trying to alleviate a lot of the concerns. This has gone on a long, long time. I'm going to disagree with some of my colleagues. I put myself in the position of some of the neighbors who, when they were buying their homes or lots and did their due diligence, you know, you look at an approved plat of a subdivision, a layout and size of all the adjoining lots, you make your decision and you buy. And I think we should protect them from the, you know, somebody coming in and wanting to essentially build a second house in their backyard. You know, I've been out there twice and I picture it in the winter where the leaves are down. That house is really going to stick out at night with the lights on in the evening. So I'm voting with the objectors.
Other comments? Mr. Van Kerkhoff?
Yeah, if the development committee moves their recommendation forward on this, I would recommend considering a condition that would predicate that the court settlement agreement order, whatever resulting, be provided prior to the issuance of the building permit, because absence the use of this easement, this parcel may not meet the requirements of the Plat Act, may require a minor subdivision because it would involve a new easement over that parcel in order to reach the back one. So that's one of the key aspects of this from a creation of the lot standpoint. And I'd also defer to the plat officer, Jody Walnick, but in terms of a way to make sure that that easement's been solidified and finalized before we issue a building permit, I would recommend you consider that a condition.
Ms. Walnick?
I am in agreement with Director Van Kerkhoff's comments. We had provided those comments previously. If a new easement needs to be created as part of the settlement agreement, it would need to go through our subdivision process as well.
Is there a consensus on the committee that those recommendations of staff should be included as part of the approval process?
Yes.
And I'd ask that, who moved? Was it Mr. Kenyon that moved?
Yes,
Would you?
I would include
Would you
them.
move to include that? And the party seconding
Aye.
is Mr. Weber. We've not voted yet, so we'll consider that to be a fact, those conditions. Are there any other comments or questions? Mr. Thornhill.
I would just like to
I'm
sum
having
up.
trouble with names this morning.
I've been there too myself. I'd like to sum up a few matters that some people may have forgotten. Mrs. Krempel has lived on this property since the early 90s. And as Barbara Nicky has indicated, she wants to retire, spend her last days on this property. She loves the area, loves the neighborhood, has no intention of relocating. The lot that's being created here is larger than several of the lots adjacent to this property. In fact, the objector lives on a lot that's even smaller than the one that he's complaining about. As to petitions, I've seen many petitions circulated where the people that sign it are a friend of the person circulating it, and they'll sign it without realizing what the consequences really are. So I don't put a lot of stock in the value of a petition signed by people that don't even live near this property. If you look at the mapping, how many of those people do you think ever get to the end of Bittersweet Lane? Bittersweet Lane is almost a half a mile long. Do you think 30 people are going to go up there every day to see this house? I don't think so. Many of the issues raised in the Kane DuPage land use opinion have already been resolved. In fact, they were resolved before the report even came out. The issues on drainage have already been attended to, and the Stormwater Management Office is aware of what needs to be done. The best management practices will be used in this case, just as they are in many others that you've seen. So this is a matter for the county board to approve. It's very consistent. It will result in a lot that's very consistent with other lots in the area, as well as the de facto use of the property, which is primarily zone farming. The proposal is to zone from F to R1. That is the question here. Is R1 a better use of this property than farming? That's the question for the county board. As to the division, we're entitled to use the Plat Act to divide this property. We're not creating a new easement. The easement has always been there. The court simply confirmed it, or is about to. So I would ask you very strongly to consider approving this and recommending to the county board that it approve our zoning. Thank you.
Excuse me, this is Jeff Fender. May I speak one more time?
Certainly.
Yes, I appreciate Mr. Thornhill's position on that. However, if you take into consideration, let's assume 2.5 cars per house, you're now creating another 2.5 cars in the new house. Ms. Krempel only has one car currently, and somewhere down the road, there's going to be families in both of those houses that are going to have 5 cars total. Now you take the other 4 driveways that lead into that cul-de-sac, and now if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, you've got 6 houses that lead into that cul-de-sac with 2.5 cars. That creates a lot of traffic. And so the traffic on Bittersweet will increase, and that's one of the reasons the petitioners who signed that petition we're concerned about the amount of traffic. In addition to, there's a lot of people who live on Bittersweet who have been here 40, 50 years that don't want to see the bottom line of that Bittersweet area change at all. So we can sit here and argue whether or not who signed it, when they signed it, whatever. The facts are 85% of the people on Bittersweet signed that petition and are against this. Thank you.
Thank you. There being no further comment or question from the committee, I'd ask please that the roll be called. And this would be approval with adherence to the staff recommendations.
Guerrero,
Guerrero, no.
Bras,
No.
Hanson. Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges is not present today.
absent. Weber,
Yes.
Winicky,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes,
Okay, passes.
motion carries. The next petition before us is petition number 4547. Oh, that's better.
They're bringing the slide up, but there was a concern, a condition from the ZBA still regarding stormwater. I'll defer to Director Welnick, but there's our staff recommendation that this petition be tabled to the next meeting while they continue to wait for information from their engineer.
Correct. We had contact about a month ago with John Spenader, an engineer that was hired by the petitioner, and have not received any feedback from that engineer in the last 30 days. So we would request that it be tabled to at least obtain some preliminary information from the engineer.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Winicky?
Before a table, I just want to know what's ETO? What's it an acronym for? Do we know?
The petitioner is here. I don't know what the ETO stands for exactly, but it's the name of their
They
company.
combat mosquitoes. They're our friends.
Yeah.
It's acronym for enjoy the outdoors.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, and then, I'll be-
If I may also, I just got a message from John Spinader, and he says they came to a tentative agreement with Ann Wilford regarding the water issue.
As of yesterday, Anne had not heard back from Mr. Spenader.
And that was as of this morning. He just said
Okay.
they came to an agreement this morning.
We can certainly review that and bring that back next.
are we still table?
I think it yet be appropriate that we have a motion to table.
Okay.
Mr. Leonard moves, Ms.
Second.
Winicky seconds. Please call the roll.
Got the gas station next to it.
Guerrero,
Guerrero, yes.
Bras,
Yes.
Hanson, Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Winicky,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes. The next matter before us is petition 4549 in Plato Township.
Okay, thank you. While we're waiting for that petition to come up, I just want to thank IT for particularly Marcus Smith and our zoning team and our zoning board. We had a number of petitions this month. We spread it out over 2 evenings in order to best accommodate the Zoom process. We hosted those with a physical presence from the county boardroom here. Our ZBA members attended remotely, as did the petitioners and people interested in speaking. So thank you for your assistance on that. First one is 4549 Heartland Bank and Trust Company, requesting rezoning from F District Farming to F1 Rural Residential to allow an existing home to be sold off separately from the remaining farmland. It's in the area for agriculture in the 2040 plan. You can see it outlined in red. Here it is on the zoning map, predominantly farmland with some other F1s in the area. Here it is on a whiteout aerial. You can kind of see the existing land use pattern and some of the farmsteads and F1s along McDonald Road and the farmland to the south. Here's more of a close-up. You can see that this is an existing residence. This proposed F1 would allow for this residence and area to be split off from the farmland. There's another close-up there. Here's the proposed plat. And a close-up showing the existing home, showing the rough area of the existing septic. This is an easement being dedicated to get to provide access if needed in the future for the farmland to the south. Their staff recommends stipulations from the Water Resources Department. Their typical stipulations, as well as the Health Department should review the proposed easement going over the septic area. That was done. The outline of the septic area is general in nature and just in the corner, so there was not a concern from the Health Department. Staff recommend findings of fact. The rezoning will allow the existing home to be split off and sold from the remaining farmland. The Zoning Board of Appeals recommended approval with the 4 recommended stipulations, one of which has been addressed, and it's before you this morning. And if Director Welnick has any comments, special comments on the Water Resources ones, I'd be happy to let her cover that.
Thank you. This particular property historically was an issue under the Director Shook. There was a significant effort that went in through our cost share program to try to rectify the drain tile issues on this property, as well as funds expended. Therefore, we have added the particular drain tile issues under the stipulations to ensure that's not an issue in the future.
Thank you. May we please have a motion? Mr. Weber moves, Mr. Leonard seconds. Comments or questions? Comments or questions online? I'm sorry. Joy Pinta?
Oh, yes. Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, Joy Pinta, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'm the attorney for Heartland Bank and Trust Company, the petitioner. I don't necessarily have any comments. I just wanted to be available for questions. The only thing I would like to add is that we've already submitted the drain tile study to Water Resources as part of our minor plat of subdivision petition. And there is an easement that is included in the minor plat of subdivision that was approved at last month's meeting.
Thank you. Do we have comments or questions from the committee? Do we have comments or questions from committee members not physically in the room? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Ferrero,
Ferrero, yes.
Bras,
Yes.
Hanson, Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Warnicki,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Okay, passes.
Motion carries. The next is petition 4551, and I would note to the benefit of the committee that there is a Scrivener's error, which we should correct prior to presentation, that being the zoning board's approval. There's a recital in that first sentence, or there's a first sentence that says the property is located in the flood route across Cherry Avenue and considered an unmapped floodplain. That is a Scrivener's error, and that sentence should not be in that description, which probably makes some difference to people as they read it. Mark, would you please?
Great, thank you. So the petition 4551 Lazaro Villa requesting special use in the B3 business district to allow for outside car sales. This is the location here along Montgomery Road. It's an area that is a urban neighborhood, mixed use infill, which can be residential or business. This is an area that has mostly businesses here and a mix of residential. And it's also somewhat surrounded by the village of Montgomery. Here it is on the zoning map. The parcel already has a B3 zoning with a special use for the landscape business. Here it is on the aerial, a little bit closer up, you can see the existing business uses, some that are in the village and some that are unincorporated, and then transition to residential neighborhoods. Here's a close-up of the subject property. This was, aerial was taken when there was a previous tenant with a car business, which is a permitted use. That tenant has since been left the property, and the owner with this new tenant and this new proposal wants to have significantly less cars on the property and have it in a better state. Here's another close-up. Again, the cars do not reflect the current conditions nor the proposal by the petitioner. So the new tenant is proposing to do auto repair. He represented in the petition, and then the his testimony that his contract with the property owner would limit the number of cars that he has on the property, so that the owner's main business of landscaping would continue without being hindered by that. This shows the location of where he'd have his cars for sale. And just a reminder, the other uses are permitted uses on site. The only thing triggering the special use is the car sales. So he's basically going to be fixing some cars, and he wants to be able to sell them from the property, a maximum of 5 cars. Water resources, the stipulations, again, the first sentence should be struck from the record and will not move forward based on the committee's action. Zoning Board of Appeals recommended approval with 2 additional stipulations. Again, the water resources one, which would be corrected, and then a stipulation that no more than 5 cars for sale be on the property at a time. And it's before you this morning, unless Director Wolnick has any additional questions or comments.
Thank you. May we have a motion, please? Mr. Fries, seconded by Mr. Hanson. We have comments or questions? Mr. Hanson.
It fit.
Teresa, I'll get to you next.
It fits into the
Okay,
area.
thank you.
The proposal fits into the area. There's car repair businesses in the area. It used to be a car lot. I'm in support of the program.
Thank you. Ms. Barrero?
I was just concerned with how many cars are going to be selling. Like, what type? Do we have 2 different businesses going in the same location? That's my question. Or is he doing? Is it one owner that's selling cars and also has a landscaping business?
My understanding, the petitioner and the owner has the landscape business, and he's leasing the building for auto repairs, and the special use is proposing a maximum of 5 cars for sale.
Thank you.
Okay. I was thinking maybe we should bring it down to like 3 cars instead of 5. Put them on.
Mr. Fries?
It just seems like such a limited request, and I would hate to, shackle the guy with having to count cars between 1 and 5. So I support the petition as presented.
Other comments?
Throw it out.
Is there anyone online, in addition to Mrs. Barrero, that wants to comment? Hearing no one, would the clerk please call the roll?
Guerrero,
Ferrero, yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Hanson, Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Winnicke,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Passes.
The next petition is, motion carries. Next petition is 4552 in Big Rock Township.
The petitioner is the Kane County Forest Preserve District, rezoning from F District Farming to F1 District Rural Residential to allow existing farmette to be split off from the remaining farmland. It's this location on Lasher Road. You can see that it's in the area predominantly for agriculture. And it's going to be surrounding farmland, part of an acquisition for more open space for the Prairie Cane Sour Family Forest Preserve. Here it is on the zoning map. You can see it's an area all zoned F farming. Here it is on the aerial and a close-up.
Thank you. May we have a motion, please? Mr. Leonard moves, Mr. Fries seconds. Do we have comments or questions? Comments or questions off-site? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Barrero? Barrero? Okay. Frost?
Yes.
Hanson? Kenyon?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Winnicke?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes. Motion carries. Petition 4553.
Okay, petition 4553, Kingville Township, West Watson LLC. This is a addition of some additional uses in defined areas in an existing F2 agricultural related business for related sales, service processing, research, warehouse, and marketing. This would allow for the sale of alcoholic beverages and consumption in limited areas as defined by the amendment to the petition. Here's the areas for the F2, and the areas in red are the three areas that would be the alcohol could be served, and the area predominantly agriculture in the 2040 plan. Here you can see on the zoning map, the petitioner already has a number of F2s as part of their operations on both sides of Watson Road that have been approved in the past. And again, this is an amendment that would allow alcohol use on this side. There already is alcohol in limited areas in the other areas of the F2 on the east side of Watson Road. Here it is on an aerial, a little bit closer up. The areas basically reflect two areas that are existing, part of existing buildings that would be used for small groups event. And this is an area on a previous F2 approved for a future pavilion building. So that would allow that when that future pavilion is built to also have limited alcohol sales. Here they are again in more detail. And again, on the legal descriptions for those areas. There were some stipulations from Water Resources related to the impervious areas. Also stipulation that the food plan review, food permit would be required. Staff recommended findings of fact. The amendment would allow for those three areas for sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages, similar to other parts of this F2 and other F2s that have been approved in the past. Zoning Board of Appeals recommended approval with the stormwater stipulations. They also asked for staff to review at the state's attorney's office whether the F2 district specifically allows for alcohol sales. They reviewed that with the state's attorney's office, and they feel that the historic precedent and the general language or intent of the F2 does provide for that. But they also recommended that the zoning board and the county board consider an amendment in the future that might make that more clear. And it's before you this morning. The petitioners are also here as well as their representative. Thank you.
Thank you. May we have a motion, please? Ms. Winnicke moves, Mr. Fries seconds. Do we have comments or questions, Mr. Fries?
Yeah, this is the Kuiper's Pumpkin Farm and Apple Orchard. It's in my district. It's been there for several years. Generally speaking, the east side of Watson Road was the Apple Orchard operation and their big store, which currently, as was stated, has a wine tasting, kind of a winery type atmosphere there where they sell and distribute wine. So this would allow the west side of the road, which is the pumpkin operation. When you're out there, it's kind of seamless, but that's how it falls into place. It is a separate parcel. So to continue those kind of uses on the west side would require this. This zoning had no issues to date over many years of operation out there. So I endorse it.
Thank you. Other comments? Mr. Kenyon.
This will be a good thing for them and a good thing for the area. And I'll vote to approve it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the vote?
Barrero,
Ferrero, yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Hanson, Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Winnicke,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Okay, pass.
Motion carries. Last but not least, petition
All day.
4554.
Okay, petition 4554, Development Properties, Inc., rezoning from F District Farming to E1 District Estate Residential to allow a new single-family home to be constructed. This is located in Campton Township in an area that's designated for countryside estate residential, which would be residential uses on 4-acre minimum lot size. The subject total area, the property the petitioner owns are 2 existing parcels with a significant floodplain. This rezoning and redrawing of the lot line would allow for them to take an existing accessory structure that existed from a previous residential use, convert that to a single-family home and have the entire zone property outside of the floodplain. Here it is on the zoning map. You can see there's predominantly residential uses unincorporated and within the village of Lily Lake in the area, and then some remaining farmland to the north. Here it is on the aerial. The residential use immediately to the east also has a special use for a kennel operation. Here's a close-up of the proposed new reconfigured parcel. The balance of the property would be reconfigured into one parcel, would remain F District Farming, but would not have any entitlement for an additional single-family home. There was a single-family home that existed on this location here, actually in the floodplain.
Yeah.
So this is a much improved way to reestablish one single-family home on this entire area. This is the location of the existing barn accessory structure that the petitioner wants to convert to a single-family residence. Here's a plat, also a bit of a detail provided for how they would take that existing structure and add on to it. This is a location of the existing structure. And again, this line basically takes it all out of the floodplain and areas for wetlands. That's just a floodplain map illustrating how the new parcel does accomplish that. The new parcel would be more than 5 acres, so it's consistent with the land use plan and the zoning district being applied for. The Water Resources Department had some stipulations regarding it. A lot to do with the floodplain and mapping. Health Department, new construction would have to meet all well and septic codes. And staff recommend findings of fact rezoning would allow a single-family home to be reconstructed on this reconfigured parcel. A zoning board recommended approval with 7 stipulations. And it's before you this morning. We had quite a active attendance from adjacent property owners as part of the zoning hearing. Most of them were concerned whether this action would allow for additional single-family homes to be built on the property. I think those were addressed satisfactorily to them. Some of the other concerns were stormwater concerns with the drainage. And I think Water Resources conditions address those concerns as well. But we'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'd defer to your list if you have anyone online signed up to speak. Thanks.
Thank you. I've been advised that the petitioner is online. Do you wish to make any comments? I will assume that's a no.
No, I do not at this time unless there's questions for me. This is Logan Wilding, 5N955 Castle Drive, St. Charles.
Thank you. May we have a motion, please? Ms. Winnicke moves. Mr. Kenyon seconds. Do we have comments or questions? Mr. Fries.
If this is the parcel I'm thinking of, and Barb thinks it is, there was a large house that burned down there many, many years ago. And it sat there in that condition for, seemed like a decade or more. So this, what's proposed today kind of closes the book on that whole situation. So I support it.
I see Mark nodding, so I'm assuming that you're,
Yes, the house that
Recollection
he
is
referred
correct.
to is located here, was actually in the
Just off
floodplain. It was a problem property for many, many years, so this is a good resolution to that history.
thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Ferrero,
Ferrero, yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Hanson, Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Winnicke,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Okay, passes.
Motion carries. Item C, we have a presentation regarding fire damaged residents.
Yes, you have a resolution and a presentation. This is the beginning of the process for applying for a court order to demolish the property. I'll go through this presentation quickly in the interest of time. Waiting for it to come up. Unfortunately, this story starts with a fire to this beautiful home in a subdivision. You can see these photos that show the extent of the damage. This fire event happened a year ago, which is why it's before you today. I won't go through these slides, but just in summary, we have funding available through a state grant to demolish blighted and unsafe structures. So there's no cost to the taxpayers, but it allows us the ability to initiate court action and follow through with a court order, and then have those funds reimbursed through this grant program. It's been a very successful program, mainly been that it provides extra incentive for the owner to follow through with that. So there's our process, which you've seen before. In the interest of time, I'll skip over that. The resolution before you would be authorizing an application to the circuit court for demolition of this property at 15N848 Meadow Court in Rutland Township. Again, here it's location in another photo. We've had many complaints from neighbors, mainly due to the length of time that it's stayed in this condition. It does have a fence around it, but it, you can see from the photos, has an impact. There's been a lag in time frame for the owner to deal with it. We had a gap from February to June. The good news is that the owner is currently engaged again in getting it demoed down to the foundation and coming up with a plan for reconstruction. But we've also advised them that due to the length of time that we need to take this consider this parallel track, so that if he is either unable or falls off again, that we have this process started because of the length of time it takes to actually file the court and get a court order to do this. So staff is recommending that you pass this resolution. If you pass it and the county board does, we would continue on in that process. We would also have the ability to slow down that process as long as the owner is making progress. So I guess we have Plan A and Plan B in action at the same time. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Van Kerkhoff, I've got a question for you. With respect to the owner, does he have insurance, and does the insurance include demolition of a destroyed property?
I do not know for certain the conditions on that. I believe that's part of the reason why it's taken so much time for him to decide what to do and work with his insurance. We generally don't get involved in that, so I don't know the answer to that question.
My only concern is if in fact his insurance coverage should or would cover the demolition, I would prefer not to use the funds in our grant to demolish it. I understand there's a timing issue too, and I'm wondering if possibly the homeowner and or the insurance company is delaying things in hopes that the county will take care of the demolition cost.
I don't believe that's the case with this. Like I said, the property owner is actively engaged. I don't know all the reasons why the lapse in time. He is engaged, but because of the lapse in time, we recommend moving ahead with this. We always prefer to see them, take action on their own, and I'm still hopeful that this will happen. But I think the neighbors would appreciate knowing that the county board is also taking a strong action if he doesn't follow through.
Yeah, I agree that we need to take action on this. I thought you'd mentioned earlier that the owner was not engaged and now is engaged.
Correct.
So I'm wondering what the reasoning is behind that. And I would like to find out the insurance issue before we expend some of our grant money on this.
Certainly, yeah, that would be,
Chairman Martin,
Teresa, I will recognize you as soon as this part is complete.
thank you. Thank you.
Mark?
sure, I can try to get that information from the property owner in terms of the insurance, but that would always be our preference. And, we have the ability to pause this process at any time if he's making progress on it. It's just that until we get the process started, we can't really do anything.
Am I correct that we expend money, but we also have lien rights? Is that correct?
That's correct. If we were to expend the money, we'd be reimbursed under the state grant, but we'd also would place a lien on the property. So if someone purchased the lot to build a new home, and very likely in a neighborhood like this, then that lien would be satisfied and the funds would be returned to the county again.
So the lien situation is really the key here. If we can put a lien on it to get back money, if there is another source to reimburse us, we can do that.
Correct, yes.
Okay, good. That was my concern. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Ms. Barrero?
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Martin. I just have a couple questions for Mark. Mark, how much was that grant originally for that we received?
Originally, we received a 2-year grant for $250,000, which was the maximum, and that was recently, a year ago, we received a second grant for that. So we have plenty of capacity under the grant to do this and other demolitions as needed.
Exactly. We have over $250,000 available to us in grant money to help us with the situation. I just wanted to thank you and Scott Berger for applying for these grants and for getting these grants, and that really helps the constituents of Kane County when we can tie state and federal funds to improving our county. So I think that's a huge thing that we all need to look at, and if we can use that grant money to tear it down, then this is the time to do it. So I commend you on that, and I'm sure the neighbors will be very pleased to see that this situation is getting taken care of. Even though it's been a year, I think that's still pretty good. I've seen homes sit for up to 5 years, arguing back and forth with the areas, with the cities. So I commend you on this, and I'm sure the neighbors will look forward to this house getting repaired or knocked down.
Thank you. And any other comment? Mr. Kenyon?
It's a shame this has gone on so long. If you can imagine, if you were living across the street paying $9,000 or $10,000 in taxes, living across, it should have been handled by the homeowner sooner.
I
Just
think
to
the
get
ta-
it
I
out
think the
there.
taxes on those houses would be more than 9,000 or 10,000.
Yeah, they might be a little bit more, but I mean, it's too bad they had to look at this for so long.
Thanks.
Yes, yes.
May we have a motion, please? Mr. Kenyon moves, Mr. Weber seconds. Do we have comments or questions? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Barrero,
Ferrero, yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Hanson. Yes. Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Winnicke,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Planning and special projects.
Okay, I think you have in your usual report, a lot of our planning team reports their details to the Jobs Committee, Energy Environmental Committee, and Agriculture Committee. So I won't go over them in detail unless there's any questions. I will make a plug though for Agriculture Committee on Thursday. We have some exciting news on the agenda regarding grants that our Farmland Protection and Local Foods team have been able to get. And we're very excited about that and appreciate the support that the Agriculture Committee and our partner gives of those programs. So tune in on Thursday if you want more information.
Oh, thank you. Grant money.
Thursday's exciting.
Grant money is always exciting news.
Yes. Free money.
We have one subdivision matter before us today. Good morning.
Good morning. This is plat of consolidation. There is current Williams plat of consolidation. It's over in the St. Charles Township.
That place is a lot of trouble, St. Charles.
It's just south of the Burr Hill Club subdivision. This is an aerial that kind of shows that it is currently 2 lots. There's one to the east, one to the west. There's an access road that goes off in the direction towards the east. It's shared by multiple owners there. The issue that has come before us is that this owner wants to construct a pole barn, which you can kind of see where the preliminary foundation is for that pole barn. But due to the zoning, which is E1, he cannot place a pole barn on a parcel without a residence. So in order to rectify that, he is combining these 2 lots, of which he owns both parcels, so he can go ahead and put his pole barn in the position that you can kind of see ghosted on the current aerial. When he does this access road that is coming off of here that goes through Campton, the village of Campton Hills, he will eliminate that access road. This will be cut off. There will not be any access from this side street over here. Fire department has reviewed this and they have no issues with that. This is the plat of consolidation in which the 2 lots will be combined into one. And it is the recommendation of staff that this will bring it into conformance with our stormwater ordinance as well as the current zoning of E1. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
There's the current access to the south. Is that being used? Is that an active?
It is currently being used. As you can see on the aerial, there is an access drive that goes down to the south, but it's the desire of this owner to remove that access point.
If that's part of our process, do we know that his removal of that access will not conflict with the terms of whatever the easement agreement is for the common drive? He's going to be increasing the use of the common drive, and sometimes easements restrict.
Not that I am aware of.
Gotta eat 'em all.
There is an access drive that is recorded in which I believe it's like 6 or 7 different parcels as it goes out towards Burr Road, and they all access their homes through that access point.
If I could jump in, the new owner purchased the property about a year ago. The previous owner added that access drive without permission of the village of Campton Hills or the township. So it was an unpermitted access drive that was not part of the original plan. So this new owner is willing to remove that access drive that was unpermitted.
Okay, so the access, this one is I keep thinking of words that are inappropriate. This one shouldn't be there.
Correct. In addition to that, the previous owner also added a significant area of impervious surface that exceeded the requirements for detention. So the new owner has agreed to add the detention that would have been required of the previous owner.
All right, thank you. Mr. Leonard, did you have a comment?
No, I don't.
Okay. May we have a motion, please? Mr. Fraz moves, Mr. Leonard seconds. Do we have comments or questions? Mr. Fraz.
I'm real familiar with this property. We worked for the previous owner, and yeah, that drive was always, he kind of bullied it in there, and it was always a controversy. But as you can see, they planted just an enormous amount of pine trees around the property, so you can't even see that field from any other homes that I'm aware of. So I think it's a logical request, and then it will end that driveway controversy also.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Guerrero,
Ferrero, yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Hanson, Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Winnicke,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Okay, it's approved.
Environmental resources? No report today. Water resources, anything on the list? Community reinvestment? Are you on the phone with us? No report there. Settlers Hill.
Thank you. I have one resolution before you today. At the prior Development Committee meeting, we went through a slideshow in the detail of change order number 15. And that change order was specific to design standards that were approved by the IEPA and limitations on materials that were specified. We noted these items after construction had already occurred. And so the contractor had to go through and replace a number of those items due to engineering deficiencies. Those were additional costs to Kane County. And so we have negotiated with the engineer on a reduction to their invoiced amount, and in a total amount of $25,147.50. $10,000 of that are specific to potential overtops to the culverts that are on the running course and cross the running course to bring the water down the hill. There's the potential, if we were to receive a large rain event prior to the establishment of the permanent stabilized deep-rooted vegetation, that the Forest Preserve could incur costs related to erosion repair. So that $10,000 will be held in escrow in Fund 650 for the potential use by the Forest Preserve District, and the balance of that would be refunded to that fund for additional engineering fees that were incurred. So we're requesting approval of the reduction of Weaver Consultant Group's invoice amount by $25,147.50 to resolve the engineering issues that occurred on the cross-country course.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard?
So moved.
Ms. Winnicke, seconds. Thank you. Just, excuse me, just to expand, since we've had such a short meeting today and we want to have it last longer. The essence of the conversation with the consultant was that we agreed to pay for things that would have been properly included in the contract in the beginning, and they bore the burden of matters that needed to be corrected. And happily, the number was much smaller than we anticipated that it could be, so all sides were pleased with the outcome. Are there any other comments or suggestions or comments? Hearing none. Did we get a second? Okay. Would you please call the roll?
Guerrero,
Ferrero, yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Hanson, Kenyon, Leonard,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Winnicke, Martin.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Do we have any new business? I dare you. May I have a motion, please, to place reports on file?
So moved.
Ms. Winnicke
So
moves.
moved.
Ms. Barrero seconds. Comments or questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Guerrero,
Ferrero, yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Hanson, Kenyon, Leonard,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Winnicke.
Yes. We have no need for executive session. May I have please a motion to adjourn? Mr. Kenyon moves, Mr. Fraz seconds. All in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same
Aye.
sign. Motion carries. The meeting stands adjourned.
May I approach the bench, Your Honor?
For a sidebar?